So I've never really done like the death metal thing, and I wouldn't claim to be a death metal singer. I can sing low as well as I can sing high, and there were certain tracks that it needed that for it to get its purpose across.
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Joe Nally of Urne. How are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good. A little bit under the weather, a little bit tired because we've been doing a lot of traveling this month. So we've got a few days off now before we head out for another festival. So yeah, so now here I am talking to you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Please hydrate and get well soon.
Thank
We're on the verge of this brand new album coming out, A Feast on Sorrow, on Candlelight Records, a very esteemed, great name still in this genre. And, I've followed the band, as I said, offline for quite a while. And this record is definitely a whole mood and a vibe over the previous one. I know it's very cliche for bands to say, this is my best record, but it really does seem like the culmination of everything the band has worked towards at this point. Was that something that was conscious for you to try to just outdo yourself?
Well, I think the last album and the EP, I don't, it's hard. One of the things the EP gets included, and I try not to. That was just something a couple of mates did, and it is what it is. But with the previous album, we wasn't signed. We just saved up some money that we made from shows and put a bit of our own money in. And we kind of wrote songs. Half of it's very serious and good, and I find the other half of it a little bit on the edge of being just poor. But the the tracks that I think are really good on that album, I think are really, really great metal tracks. So this time around, obviously, we signed, we got management, we got a great booking agent. Everything's now very serious. So, we had to write an album where we can't go, oh, let's just have a little bit of a laugh in this one. Let me do a vocal that sounds like King Diamond, or let me do this and that. This time it has to be a really serious record. And yeah, and you always, of course, you'd want to have everything to be better than the previous thing you've done. And uh, I think I knew it's weird. I was like, okay, if we write five really good songs, at least that's one more than the last album, in my opinion. But I think we made a really great piece of art, really. When it's art because it's what you create, and it's got 8 tracks, and even like track 7, which is a really mellow piece, it serves its purpose in the grand scheme of everything. I knew we had to top it, and I feel like we comfortably have topped that last record.
I agree. I think it's really strong. From the first chord, it jars you, takes you in. And I do like that the album has a journey and it's a little more dynamic. And I felt like that might be the
Hmm.
direction you were going to go. If I had to guess, as a person that listens to a lot of music on a daily basis, I would have
Yeah,
guessed that you would go more dynamic, but it's also very extreme, and it's just so compelling. And especially the vocals. Obviously everybody's got riffs. Every band is brutal, but like this, the vocals are terrific, the lyrics are terrific from what I can tell.
thank you,
And
thank you.
I don't know what work went into that for you personally on that level. But yeah, no notes. Terrific.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I think on the last album, I blew my voice out right near the end, and we were running out of time. So the track I did on the last album is the final track on the album. And if you listen to it compared to listen to the opening track to the last track, my voice is completely gone, and I was really struggling. Whereas this time, I didn't want that to happen, but I wanted to try other things, and there's a mood about the album. So I've never really done like the death metal thing, and I wouldn't claim to be a death metal singer. I can sing low as well as I can sing high, and there were certain tracks that it needed that for it to get its purpose across. Yeah, it was stuff that I've never tried. There's certain things that I would be shouting with a little bit more less grit pulled off of it. But a big thing for me is whenever I shout, I want people to try and like understand what I'm saying. It kills me sometimes when I listen to screamers, and they could be saying anything. I don't find it impressive, and I'm just like, whatever, it means nothing. I can't understand what you're saying. I can't feel your emotion. There's no emotion there. Whereas I try my hardest to get that across, and I think I did pretty well with this record. I must admit, I feel like I did get it spot on for now, anyway.
Nice. Every artist would say for now, and that's well done also.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. And I will say I also love the screamy, higher pitched hardcore stuff. Definitely takes me back to my youth and will be a good old time live, I'm sure. I think people don't understand. Like if you blow a speaker out as a guitar player or you blow a cone, you go replace it. You can't replace your voice. So it does
Yeah,
take
yeah,
time
yeah.
and it does take training. And then the live animal is always different from the studio, even if you
Oh
try to
yeah.
be a purist. So I'm very excited to hear these songs and how they translate live. And
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be, I'm interested to see, like, now you have another body of work to add. So I don't know what gets taken away, but obviously I'm sure you want to represent this new era in a way musically
Hmm.
live.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've already sent across some set lists to our guitarist today. So what do you think of this? And I think for the time being, you're gonna. I'd like to try and keep it equal. But if we go out on a headliner tour for the album, of course you're gonna whack a few more in. But one thing I think we've got, I feel like we have the possibility to really mix up our set lists depending on who we're going out with. So with we just come back with from shows with Gajira, we could do a lot of stuff with them. It's kind of like they have quite a broad sound, and let's do what we want to do. There's a tour, some dates being announced next week. It's a very different vibe band to Gajira, but it's something that we can work with, and I'm excited about seeing what we will put together for that. And it's a completely opposite to what Gajira is. So that excites me, and I'm glad that we can do that. I'm glad that we kind of put our hat in the ring for a lot of tours because we have such a large sound, and yeah, I think that's going to benefit us moving forward.
Nice. I concur. I think you guys can play with any kind of heavy band. Helping me with my segue, I was about to ask about Joe and the impact that he's had coming into
Hmm.
your life and coming into the band. And what I really appreciate personally about Joe is that, a lot of people become producers, open a studio, and then all the records sound like their band. And none of Joe's bands that he produces, I think he goes out of his way to make sure they don't sound or try to ape the sound
Yeah.
of Gojira. He helps create a sound appropriate for each band. But I wanted to ask, what has he brought in for you, and what has he done for you?
Well, I think it's one thing. It's funny. I've seen a few things where people go, "Oh, it sort of sounds like Gajira." Oh, well, our music doesn't. I was talking to Jean Michel about this the other day, the bass player. Our music doesn't. It's the fact that he's created a vibe on these songs. And Gajira, certainly the last two records, certainly Magma, it's all vibe, vibe, vibe. And that's what it is. And I just before I come on here, I saw someone a magazine tracks of the week, and it says Urne are the only band who managed to sound like Gajira. It's basically saying we write like Gajira, but we sound absolutely like Urne. And too many bands try to sound like Gajira and to sound like a cheap Intimidate, like I can't even think of the word, cheap knockoff, whatever. I can't even think now. Cheap knockoff of Gajira, whereas we just write and it just happens to kind of naturally fall like that. But where we've had Joe come in, he's added that sort of sound that Serpent didn't have. It didn't have a character to it because it was a bit all over the place song wise. Um, what he certainly made me think about things differently regarding vocal patterns and what I can do with my voice, and that's something that excited about, like to tackle moving forward. I think he's given us a lot of confidence. If you're going to get a guy who, if you look at who he's worked with, his mates and mainly mates and bands that he kind of gets along with, but he messaged a band that he's never met, and we we we've never met him before, and that gives you confidence. And he's definitely given us that boost that we didn't have before. And Christ, I mean, certainly it seems stateside that band are getting massive. in Europe, they've been big for, some time in some territories. They're bigger than in other territories. But in America at the moment, it seems to be really bubbling. And they're heavy. They're a heavy band. And the fact that two of the guys in that band come to us, yeah, it makes you feel good. And it just changes the outlook and your approach to how you want to do your band. And just being out with them for the last sort of 2, 3 weeks, it's so professional and well run. Their crew's amazing. Their crew's been with them for a long time. And there must be a reason then guys keep going back to them. And it's because I think how Gojira are as people, they're so honest and lovely. And I'm like, they're the nicest guys. And then they go up on stage and you're like, it's this evil machine. I say evil in a way it's intense. It's so angry and passionate, but also so beautiful at the same time. And I'm like, wow, Jesus Christ. And I think he's just given us confidence. He's given 3 guys who might have needed a bit of confidence in what they do. He's given us that. Yeah, forever thankful.
Nice. Yeah, they're phenomenal. They are, as you said, they are getting big here in the States. I saw them last spring with Deftones co-headline, like an 8,000 seat theater. The next thing up for them is going to be, like Europe festival headliners and things like that. Because we don't have, I don't know who the next, Metallica and Slipknot are. I don't know, or Maiden. I don't know.
In
Maybe
Europe,
them.
they headline a lot of festivals already in Europe, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, a lot of people are going to be saying, "Oh, this person or that person." You're never going to have your next Slipknot. You're never going to have your next Metallica. Certainly never going to have your next Metallica, sadly. But what we can do is just have the band to be their next Gojira. Can Gojira be the next? Let's make them just that. We don't need to go. God, can they be Metallica? That's never going to happen. The world just doesn't work like that anymore. But I think they put on the best. They're just a perfect live band. If someone went to tomorrow at a festival setting, who would you want to watch, Metallica now or Gojira now? I'd watch Gojira. It's not even a thing. And I'm talking about today's Metallica, 72 seasons Metallica, Lars Ulrich, 62 years old, whatever. It's not even a competition. And I'd take Gojira over a lot of bands because it's done so perfectly and with so much care. It's just I buzzed every night watching them. I watched every night, side stage, going mental. I was like a cheerleader for them. So yeah, a fantastic band.
Agreed. I'll say one more note about Joe and the album production. Because the drums are so massive, they sound amazing. It's probably my favorite drum production of this year so far. Year's not over; it's only half over so far. But in terms of albums that I've really delved into, I love the drum sound here, and again it matches the performance and the writing. So I have to give a little hat tip there on that. I don't know if there was any specific unique things that happened in the studio in your experience, but yeah, really great.
There's a couple of things with the drums. It's one of Mario's kits. They put a garden hose around the drum kit and drilled loads of holes and put mics at both ends to kind of grab this kind of weird sound. And the kick drum, on the kick drums, we had 2 Swiss francs. So it makes it sound really attacking. And I think that's what happens when you go to a drum room that was made for that drummer. And our drummer had he joined us 7 weeks before we went to do the album. So it's just like, you need to learn a set to go and play festivals, and you need to learn this album, which we've not finished writing yet. And the drums do sound, some of the toms, whoa, it's rocking. So I'm really glad you pointed that out. That's really good to hear.
Is that a Metallica cup, by the way?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Yes. And beer for all.
Yeah.
Yes, that's okay.
Absolutely.
We need we still need our heroes. It's okay. I didn't expect to get 70-year-old Black Sabbath, and I didn't expect to have 60-year-old Metallica. So I'm good.
Yeah. Totally.
That's great. Thanks for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. Let's get into a little bit of a track by track. And like I said, I'll shout out the song titles and you can just flow on whatever you feel like sharing. We'd appreciate it. So the album opens with, my opinion, an immense, immense opener, as you need to. The flood came rushing in.
Yeah, the previous album we opened up with something that sort of sounded like Thin Lizzy, kind of building up into a sort of a doomy thing. We can't do that again. Don't want to do that again. And the most fitting way for this album is to come straight at you. And we essentially start off with a fresh song with proggy elements within the middle. And I think for me, I'm buzzing to hear people put that on for the first time who've, this is that opening, this is their first glimpse of this new album, and that's going to come at them. And there's some great stuff in the middle there. There's some Nevermore influences in there. One of our sort of favorite bands. There's a riff that I've had for 12 years in there. I'm like, oh, it's inspired again by Metallica. It's like My Damage incorporated riff, and I've had it for years, and we finally got it. But yeah, and there's like in the chorus, there's this kind of haunting vocoder sound, like really blended in. And it's one of the things, if you took it out, you'd be like, oh, it's missing something. But it kind of comes in there, and Joe just worked away on it, and I love it. I want to try and get a version of it where it's just for a teaser or something. It's just the vocal and the vocoder because it sounds very, very haunting. So yeah, that's a little glimpse into that track.
Right on. I'm here for all the vocoder tracks. To Die Twice is the next track.
I think this is one where you can really feel the power of the drums. Like, wow, some of it, when the toms are going. I think it's the first track we wrote for the album. There's a couple of Duplantier signature things that he does. The pick scrape, the Gajira scrape, and when there's a drop, Joe says go, and it means fucking go. Now I cannot confirm, cannot confirm whatever. He might be doing both of them on this track. It's up to people to decide if it's me and Angus or if it's Joe and Joe. But and the end riff on that before the acoustic thing, that's like one of my riffs, and that live, we've been playing it, and I'm like, fuck you know. Also, the acoustic outro was Angus was just writing in the studio, just playing around. He had an idea. Joe was like, I can just jump in the vocal booth and just record it on the vocal mic. So I've got an idea. You can hear him talking in the background, like a door opening. The guitars, it's not perfect. There's some fret buzz. You can hear some like kind of scratchness on the guitar and what have you. And then we went to record the proper version, and it sounded just perfect and lifeless. So of course we went back to the one that had a bit of character to it. And yeah, so we kept that version, which just happened to be off the cuff. I'll quickly go and record that, and we'll listen to it later. And that's what made the album.
The wonderfully titled "A Stumble of Words" is the next track.
For me, like this is, we've done some really good epic songs in our time, over both albums, and me and Angus on previous stuff. For me, this is the one. I think it's the standout of the album. I think everyone's going to have a different track that they like, but I think this one really shows what we are capable of. Inspired by some of the stuff that I wrote for this, was inspired by a Cinderella song. Somebody saved me. I can't remember if that's the title now. It's a bit inspired by Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. This is just from the stuff that I wrote for it. Angus has always got a different idea of what not going on in his mind. I just think this is a really great song, and I'm proud to have been a part of that. For me, anyway.
Right on. The Burden is the fourth track on the record.
The Burden was the last song, heavy song we wrote for the album. Angus has had the the opening riff, which is also the verse and the chorus riff. He's had that for ages. So it's just finding the right moment. You know, sometimes you try and like force it into songs and it just doesn't work. And it just happened to find its moment in that. Yeah, that opens up with that. The next kind of really chuggy riff is again, it was one of mine, and it's a bit of a nightmare to learn because it's got a bit of a weird time signature. And even though I wrote it, I've had the hardest time learning it. And then I would say it's actually quite inspired by sort of like Metallica and Justice for All, some of the kind of stompiness on that album. Um, this song's gone down much better than I thought it would. People seem to love it, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And I think live is going to be great.
I agree. The halfway point of the record is Becoming the Ocean.
This one was the original riff. The opening riff was actually wrote by our original drummer, who wasn't a guitarist. He kind of mouthed it, and then Angus had to make it work. You know, had to kind of give it its shine. In the studio, my original chorus is crap lyrics, crap phrasing, and Joe one morning was like, "I'm not feeling this. What about this?" And he kind of reworked lyrics and the phrasing, the pattern, and he made it sound like a bit of an anthem in the chorus. People have It's quite funny. Someone come up to us at our first show after releasing it, and he was like, "The chorus," and I was like, "The chorus," and he was like, "The chorus," and I was like, "Yes," because you can hear Joe singing on it, and a lot. I thought we were talking about it the other night at the last show. I didn't realize, but everyone seems to know it's him because you can tell that voice. So I'm like, if you haven't clocked it already, you will do now. So yeah, I love that song. I love it. I love the original, the actual first riff we wrote for it is that kind of death style riff. I wrote that in a hotel room on tour last April, and Angus was having a piss, and in that time he come out, and I had this whole section, and I was like, "Get the fucking guitar, get the camera." So it's somewhere there's a camera of us in a hotel room playing that riff, and I love it. I love Death, like in my top five bands, and Chuck's in like top three inspirations. As even I don't play guitar, and I just felt it was perfect, and the way the ride really cuts through on the bell on that section. I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, it's great. A highlight for sure. The title track of Feast on Sorrow is next.
It's actually a song that I wrote a large majority of at minor. Angus come around. I had like one riff, had a few other bits, and before we knew it, we kind of finished the song in like 30 minutes, which for me and Angus is comfortably our record by about 4 months. So it's we're pretty proud that we did that. Um, the I can't wait to play this live because it feels massive. I think the last riff, the last build up, I think that's the heaviest thing we've ever done. Heavy, like vocals for me. This track's very, 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 very heavy on the vocals. A little bit of a teaser is the opening piano is written by Angus, the chords, and we gave them to Joe, but we had to leave because you were going on tour and we had to leave the studio. Joe come back and he's got an old piano in his house, and he took the chords and he wrote this kind of quirky little piece around it on a slightly out of tune piano, and it works. It makes it sound haunting, and I love that song. I love that, and I like I say, out of all the tracks on the album, that's the one I probably wrote the most for, and I'm pretty happy with that. It's got a great mood to it.
Did it kind of speak to you early on that this was going to be build the album around this song, or this is the title track for sure?
So I had that as the title track before the album. I put it to the album, and I was like, I felt it was a really. I love having like tracks, album tracks that I've never heard. Like, and today I just saw another band calling that album Memento Mori or something, and I'm like, that's been used about 10 times in the last 2 years, and but I like titles that I've never seen before, and I had it down as a song title, and I was like, it feels very fitting for the whole album once you go through it all and read all the lyrics. it's perfect. Yeah, I think that song, because it, like I say, it's a very dark, deep album, and I think that song really captures it.
It's a great track. Then the penultimate track is Peace, as we talked a little bit about before.
Well, this one's interesting. So we was again running out of time in the studio, and Joe got Angus to record the acoustic on an old battered acoustic that hadn't been restrung, mate. It looked like years. The strings were like inches off the fretboard. Angus was digging his hands in, and Joe was like, "Everyone grab percussion and whatnot." And mate, I just had a smoke, so I didn't know what was going on. And fucking, there's some pictures where I'm cracking up, and Joe's just looking at me so disappointed. But then he sent me a voice note going, "What am I meant to do with this?" And it's me next to one of the mics. I've got no idea, and I am dying. I am cracking up because it was like I was in some like American church cult. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, but we left it with him, and that was it. And I was like, what's gonna happen with that?" And Joe made this piece around it. He recorded some wind in his back garden. He recorded the subway underneath the studio, piano, and all this other stuff. And he knew that meant a bit to me, that track. And I was just having quite a bad day. I think I just got some news about a relative close to me. And I was coming home from work, and I get sent it on a voice note. And I was like, what the fuck? What have I done? And I play it, and it's that. And it killed me. It was the last thing we heard for the album, and it slaughtered me badly, really bad.
Life, man, it comes at you in waves. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. The final track and the very lengthy title, The Long Goodbye, Where Did the Memories Go?
There's a point. The reason I've given it two titles. There's a point at the end where it stops, and then the last riff comes in, and it felt like that just needed to have its own spot. I didn't want it to give it its own track because it's not enough to give it its own track. I felt like that last section needed to be called, just to be referred to as something else, like the final moments, the final questions that I have regarding certain matters. And again, the opening sort of section of this is inspired by, well, something that I had. Um, it's inspired by Gary Moore, legendary sort of Irish guitarist, and my Irish friends and my Finnish friends will probably know that it's inspired by Gary Moore. And then after that, Angus come in with this kind of this. It sounds really sad to me, and I love it. As soon as he started to play it, there's this real like kind of sorrow to it. And then of course we had to make it go very heavy. And yeah, I'd say that's a big tip to the hat to Metallica when it kicks in. But it's again, it's an epic. It doesn't go off on a tangent like Stumble. It's a lot more section by section. But I feel like that was the perfect way that we could have finished this album. I don't think that song could have gone anywhere else on this album. It had to be that. The lyrics on that is something I'm extremely proud of. It's very honest, very open, and easy for anyone to read to get the idea, of maybe what things have been like.
Indeed. Thanks for unpacking all that for us. I really appreciate it. I'm going to give you back the rest of your day and hopefully get you some rest. But just for a final thought, I wanted to take this opportunity. I have felt that Urne was the band that really kicked off this wave, this current wave of incredible underground heavy UK extreme metal. And maybe even a little too soon in a way. Hopefully now you'll get the flowers I think the band deserves and probably everybody else.
Thank
But
you.
what is in the water? What is in the climate? Why are there so many varied, amazing, extreme, intellectual bands right now coming out of the UK? There's so many, and I'm just astounded by the quality of the talent the last few years and new albums coming out. I could rattle them all off. It'd be as long as my arm.
Do you know what? I think that's like the, there's a lot more push from the publications over here now. I think there's a bit more of a pride that we don't always have to look at what's the big band in America. Let's put them on the front page and let's give them the articles. When it's now like actually we can do this, and and also I think over here now we've got a lot more. There's a lot more females getting their chance in bands and going, actually, you know what? I've dedicated my life to listening to metal and playing metal. I want to have a go. This is my like we've got bands Svalbard, and Serena's been at bands as long as I have, and it's a long time. And she's always worked at it, and I think there's a lot more of that happening, and there's some amazing females coming through, and they make they're grabbing their moment, and I think that's certainly helped. It's weird. I know we got a load of great bands over here. I don't. It's weird. I don't quite see ourselves in with that. I think we're a little bit older than them, so we don't quite have that social side with them. So they all go to festivals and hang out. We're a little bit in between. So like my era was bands like Silosis and what have you, and we were a bit too young then, and now we're a bit too old. But I just feel like we've got we kind of got our own thing going on. But it is great to see, and the more of us that do better, it's better for all of us. It's better for the opportunities that we get with shows, with festivals, with fees, which is an important thing. And it is exciting. It is exciting to see, and hopefully we can be, one of the bands that people do look up to. And I do know that like, I spoke to some people, and they do say we do get spoken about in high regard, which is great. It's nice to know, and because I think people appreciate that we've kind of done our own thing, and I think people can tell that we do know what we're doing, and where we're just a little bit older as well. I think we just approach things at a little bit of a different angle, just because we had a foot in that generation and we got a foot in this generation. But yeah, there's some amazing bands. There's a band here, Mountain Caller, who are a three-piece, 99% instrumental. They're insane. Our sound guys in a band called Tusker, and they're ridiculous. They're fucking amazing. Our friends in Employed to Serve, great musicians, known them for a long, long time, some of them. But yeah, there's great ones popping up. I've I've moved out of London now, so I'm a little bit out of touch with some of it. Where I used to be at shows all the time. Now I'm just a miserable bastard, living down the seaside. Um, but no, there's a lot of good stuff happening. It's good that everyone's doing well.
I would love to see that on a shirt. I used to be at shows all the time, and now I'm just a miserable bastard. What a great way to end this interview, Joe. Lovely chatting with you. Thanks for sharing so much about this album. I really appreciated it. Congratulations on A Feast of Sorrow. It's coming out on Candlelight Records in August. I'm so excited for you and for everybody to hear this record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, mate.